I want to speak to you today around this idea of make room for more. Look at your neighbor and say, there's more. Look at your second choice and say, there's really more. Look behind you and say, there's more. Look around you. No, I'm just kidding. And make room for more. I don't know about you, but summertime, you start to feel the vacation feels. The warm weather, nice breeze coming through the house. Love the summertime. Now, budget's a little tighter, so vacations might be a little shorter this year. But anybody love vacation? Yes. Now, when you think about vacation, I don't know what you think about, but what I think about is relaxation. I think about adventure. I think about unplugging. I think about family. I think about friends. I think about fun. And I think really the idea of vacation is we just want to lighten the load, don't we? Like life can be heavy sometimes, and it just feels good to unplug and lighten the load. Now I don't know if you're like this, but I have this struggle, and my wife can testify in the front row that I have this struggle when it comes to vacation. It's actually one of her pet peeves with me, is that I have this temptation to overpack on a trip. Anybody have that problem? Like you're going on an overnighter and you're ready. One night. And you have to bring everything. When I go on vacation, I like to bring my entire life with me. I'll bring stuff that I haven't worn in 2 years because I might need it. Suitcase so packed, there's no room for anything else. I remember we went to Kauai and I learned my lesson a couple years ago. I packed everything. I packed winter clothes. Why would you pack like a thick sweater for Hawaii? Maybe a thin, light sweater for an evening out if the wind is blowing. But I literally packed as if it was like we're going to Tahoe, just in case. And I'm just going through I was just rethinking that packing moment. I packed clothes for a nice dinner as if we were going to go out to a nice dinner with all of our kids and after long days. And we show up to dinner in our swim trunks that we wore the whole time. I mean, it was wild. I brought 5 books. 5 books. I read through a few chapters of one on the plane. Read my Bible, but no books. And it's worse. It can be embarrassing too as a guy, especially when you show up on a guy's retreat. You guys are getting out of the bus, you're getting out of the car, and you have that one guy, his glasses on, duffel bag, like 2 weeks worth. Got a duffel bag. And then you get out, I got 2 rollers. Like, what's up, guys? But in my mind, I'm thinking, oh yeah, you look cool with one duffel bag, but you will be asking me for socks. That is facts. So just have this tendency to overpack. What I'd hope would lighten the load, go on vacation and relax, ends up adding to it. And I would say that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, and this is sin of gluttony. Oh yeah. The hidden, secret, sly, subtle sin. I'm trying to highlight some of these sins that maybe you don't think about often. And maybe you're really not contemplating much. But gluttony promises fullness, but it leads to emptiness. It promises to lighten the load, but it makes it extra heavy. In fact, I would define it this way, is that gluttony is the enjoyment of excessive indulgence that has been disconnected from contentment in God. See, what gluttony says is, ready for this? It says, God, you're not enough. I need more. Paul says it like this in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. So whatever you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. You see, gluttony is not just about food, though it's not less than that. It's not less than food or an overindulgence in food, but it is more. I would argue that gluttony can impact the whatever you do just as much as it can impact your food and your drink. It can impact everything. And that's why he says not just eat or drink to the glory of God, but in everything that you do. See, gluttony makes God's provision and goodness about our pleasure rather than God's glory. This is what's so sad is God has created so much for you and I to enjoy. Even good food. How many of you guys just love some good food? Yes. But can I just tell you, that joy is designed, that pleasure is designed to move us closer to God, to worship him and give him glory. But what gluttony does is gluttony takes that pleasure, worships it, and forgets about God. Now, some of you are thinking today, well, this is, I'm glad you came, or I'm glad you came. This isn't for me. I don't struggle with gluttony. That's what I thought. But I would propose that gluttony today has never looked so good and so subtle. Hence the white chocolate macadamia nut cold brew at Starbucks. Now, you guys know somebody said, that's the one. That's the one. Is that you, Jack? Oh, I love it. Hey, because I'll tell you, I'm not indulging in caffeine, but I have drank a couple of these recently since they came back in. I'm preaching this message for accountability as your pastor. Because it blows my mind how something so amazing, so sweet, so innocent, so good, so delightful can lead me on a path of dependence, overindulgence, caffeinated addiction, where I won't just drink one of these. I'll want 3. I will sit down at Starbucks to study and pray and prepare a message for you with you on my mind, and I just want to vibe sometimes. I just want to vibe with the cold brew, my Bible, my laptop open, just praying, seeking God. But can I just tell you, if I'm not careful, I will start in the middle of prayer, in the middle of study, to long for the taste of this, for the caffeine rush to once again hit my veins, promising fullness, but lead me to fried adrenals that lead to fatigue, anxiety, to the point for me where God would not even be enough for me to get out of bed. I would need this. Like, it's dangerous when you wake up and you're like, cold, bro. And so a lot of times when we think about gluttony, we think about food. We think about a lot of food and overindulgence in food. And absolutely, that is correct. But the reason why it had such an emphasis on food is because our early church fathers, early theologians who kind of framed the 7 deadly sins, during that time, it was really hard to get food. Food was scarce, but yet it was easy and fast to consume. And because you didn't have a lot of it, a lot of times you were longing for just one more bite. If I can harbor a little bit more and not share it with you, if I can bring it a little bit closer, to my stomach. But the heart of gluttony has never been about simply food. It's been about a distorted desire where there's excess with no moderation. And so for us today, it's far beyond that. I mean, we could take it to Netflix. We could take it to sexual addictions and distortions. Hitting snooze 10 times in a row. Exercise and things that are good for us can be in excess to the point where they begin to hurt us. It could be the endless scroll that our culture has designed to suck us into the abyss of more with no end in mind. Jeff Cook says it this way, is that the skinny suffer from gluttony as easy as often the stout. For gluttony is first and foremost excessive. It is a third car when one will do, a third bowl when one is best, a third hobby when the other 2 you started aren't satisfying enough. Alcoholics and drug users are glutton, but so are web surfers, card players, and business people. In other words, aholic is the suffix attached to the glutton's meal of choice. For gluttony is immoderation. It's about having a gaunt soul, meaning just never satisfied. The glutton sells his or her soul for another hit, another car, another round of trivial pleasure for a forbidden fruit. See, glutton takes something a lot of times that's not necessarily evil, but gluttony can take something that's good and necessary and create a desire and a craving inside of us that produces a sinful reality that we are so sick of it and we're so full of it that we want to explode. Gluttony is a form of idolatry. It's a form of worship. Paul says in Philippians chapter 3, he says, For as I have often told you before, and now I'll tell you again, That even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross. Their destiny is destruction. Their God is their stomach, and their glory is in their shame. Their mind is set on earthly things. You see, gluttony is food in a God place. It's a food like. It's whatever appetite, whatever meal of your choice that there's overindulgence in, not just food, it could be anything. That takes the place of God. See, food was never meant to be an end of itself. A lot of the things that God has given us to enjoy and to live and to thrive are not meant to be an end in and of themselves. But rather when we are receiving what is needed, the nourishment, the joy, the provision, it should be pointing us back to our need, our appreciation, and our gratitude to the one who provided. So the things that God has entrusted to us, even those things for our joy and pleasure and nourishment and all that good stuff, are not meant to be an ends to themselves, but to point us back to him with gratitude, with thanksgiving. God, thank you for providing all of this stuff because you are my God. Right. So my question to you today is this: where is your mindset? Where is your mindset? Is it on earthly things or is it on heavenly things? Because this is the reality, is your mindset will determine your appetite. And I want to let you in a little bit today to the mind of the glutton. Like what's in the mind of gluttony? Thomas Aquinas, one of the early church medieval theologians, he describes it in a few different ways. He says gluttony, and this is my paraphrase, he says gluttony is excessive, meaning it's too much. It's exquisite, meaning it requires the richest of foods. It's dainty, meaning it needs to be perfectly prepared. And it's also demanding. It wants it right now. And so as I would say, as Paul would say, that our mindset determines our appetite. Are we set on earthly things or heavenly things? And I want to look at a few of these to help us out, maybe identify some areas of gluttony in our life that God wants to heal and restore. The first one is this, is gluttony says, I need it now. That God is not enough, I need it now. Exodus chapter 32, God has set his people free from slavery after 400 years. Moses is on the mountain with God in the cloud getting the 10 commandments. The people below are getting impatient. It says in verse 32 or chapter 32 verse 1, when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, they gathered around Aaron. Come on, they said, make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt. The first thing that I want to remind us of today is that gluttony will cause you to forget. Because let me just tell you, Moses was the person that, yes, led them out of Egypt, but it was really God that brought them up out of slavery. Gluttony will cause you to forget what's really important. Because what they forgot was that God had made a covenant with them, a covenant that they agreed to. God said, hey, listen, I'm for you. I'm with you. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to lead you. I'm going to care for you. I'm going to do all these things. This is how it's going to work. Moses is going to come talk to me on the hill. He's going to come down. He's going to give you instructions. And they all agreed, said, yes, God, we are in covenant with you. We agree with that. Whatever you say, yes and amen. So here now, Moses has been up on the mountaintop. Now imagine they've been in slavery for about 400 years. Now they're navigating through about 40 days. Not bad. And their desire for more now is about to destroy a lot of people. There's an impulsiveness that says, I need more. Not just I need more, but I need it now. I can't wait any longer. Where's he at? What's going on? Let's go. Forget God. Forget this whole deal. Let's figure it out ourselves. Anybody ever been there? On the other side of your impulse, there may be some gluttony. It says this, it says, Aaron answered them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing and bring them to me. So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him and made it into an idol, cast in the shape of a cow or a calf, fashioning it with a tool. They said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. What? How do you lose sight in just a 40-day period? God brought you out, did miracles, like you see what? And now you're building your own calf with earrings and gold? What? It's so easy to judge them, isn't it? But we do the same thing all the time. I need it now. God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't even know if you're working. I don't even know if you're coming. Let's do it now. Do you know impulse is huge? 67% of all consumers have impulsively bought when they saw this word sale. You're like, oh, okay, Pastor, you're going to bring shopping into this now. We're going there today. Okay, Pastor Matt. In 2022, the average consumer spent $314 per month on impulse buys. I just need it now. I don't even know if I really need it, but I want more and I want it now. God is not moving fast enough. I need it now. I know God said, but I don't like what I see. Because remember, it says they saw that it was taking a long time. I know what God said, but I don't like what I see. I know what God said about marriage and intimacy before marriage, but I need it now. I know what God said about this, but I need it now. I know I shouldn't snack before dinner, but I need it now. And then we end up building something that God has never called us to build because we need more and we need it now. I know what you said, but I don't like what I see. So let me take the reins and build something. And God bless Aaron. What happened to leadership? Like what they needed was somebody to say, not now. Aaron, as the leader there, he should have looked at the people of Israel and said, guys, you made a covenant with God. God is faithful. Look at all he's done. Not now. But Aaron's like, fine, bring him to me. Poor leadership. Who in your life right now can tell you not now? You need somebody in your life to point you back to God. When we start to forget what we really need to remember, they say, no, you're tripping. Not now. That's not God's best. You're going to build something that you're going to regret. When Jack and I first got married, many of you guys know the story, but for those of you guys who know, I'm going to revisit it because I think it proves a good point. I bought a moped on impulse, a moped, 125cc because we didn't live too far from the church. We just got married, bought a condo, and I wanted to save money. So I bought a moped, and this is exactly what it looked like. It had flames on it and everything. Could you imagine me riding down East 14th in San Leandro? Unashamed. And so, but then I started to see the bike world. And within 6 months, I went from 125 cc's to save money, $1,500 impulse buy. Didn't tell Jackie. Came home and said, babe, I got you a helmet. She's like, what? Got me a helmet? I'm not getting on that thing. It wasn't enough. A few months later, I bought an R6, 8500, 600 cc's. No one's going to laugh at me on this bike. A couple months later, it's not enough. I went and bought a $13,000 750. The goal was to save money. I forgot. Gluttony will cause you to forget. And then I end up building something that God never told us to build, a mound of debt that hurt not just me, but my entire family. And then I had a kid and had to get rid of the bike. And so you know what I did? I paid a dealership $3,500 to take it and pay off my loan. Anybody been there? So now I don't have a bike because I've matured. But I am looking for one. Can I just tell you, gluttony says I need more and I need it now. Where are you saying yes when you should be saying no? Can anybody in your life say, not now? Good. You forgot. What do you need to remember today that you have forgotten that God has said? That you don't like what you see, so you're building something that God has never called you to build. Second thing is this. Gluttony says, I need more, period. I just need more. God, you're not enough. I need more. Our culture is so good at this. Our culture drives this, that we always need more than we really need. If you go to a movie and you just order a large Coke and a large popcorn, you can't even carry it by yourself. It's that big. Like, hey, Jack, can I get some help? A soda and popcorn. And then God forbid that you have kids and everybody has a drink and maybe a Slurpee and some other popcorn. I mean, you need literally an assembly line to the theater to get all your stuff there. You don't think that's funny? I think it's funny. It's reality for me. But the world just says that. You need more than you really need. Point in case, Joshua and the people of Israel getting ready to take the city of Ai. Now, they had just came off a victory in Jericho where God supernaturally dropped the walls. They're entering into the promised land. God is moving in a powerful way. They go out to scope Ai. They figured, hey, no big deal. Send 3,000 guys. There's not a lot of people here. This should be an easy defeat. God is with us. They go. 36 of their men died. They don't know why. They flee in terror, afraid. Joshua starts crying out to God like, God, why did you bring us up out of here? Only to have us destroyed. God's like, stop crying. There's sin in the camp. Because what had happened was all of the goods that were taken from Jericho were supposed to be devoted to God. All of the excess resource was supposed to be devoted to him. It was God's stuff. But there was a guy by the name of Achan that decided to take some for himself. So word gets out that Achan is the guy, and Joshua says to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me. Achan replied, it is true. It's kind of like setting up your kid, like, I know you would never lie to me. I know that the glory of God is at stake. And he sets him up well, and Achan says, it's true. I've sinned against the Lord and the God of Israel. The crazy part is Achan knew the consequence, but he still did it. Like, he's not even surprised. Like, it's true. I did it. I already know what's coming. Because when Israel moved into the promised land, God was like, listen, I'm not here to satisfy the desire, your personal desire for power, for wealth, for conquest. He's like, no, listen, you're coming into the land, but you must never see the plunder as plunder, but as resource to build the tabernacle, which would eventually be the temple, a house of worship for all people where I will dwell in your midst. It was supposed to be resource to build a house for me. It was resource to build dwelling places where God could meet with his people. That's what this is all about. I mean, the promised land is full of joy, but the joy of the promised land was not a means in and of itself to an end. Like I said, it was supposed to point them back to the glory and worship and the majesty of the goodness of God. To give him glory and gratitude of all that God had done. And Achan's like, no, it's about pleasure, power, and conquest, and I'm taking some for myself. And so look what it says. It says, this is what I've done. When I saw, there it is again, I saw the plunder. Beautiful robe of Babylonia. Look how he goes into detail. He's still excited about it. 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels. I coveted them and I took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath it all. He knew. Can I tell you, gluttony will have you craving and desiring so much that those cravings and desires will overcome your conscience. They'll overcome reasoning. They'll overcome understanding, even fear of the Lord and deadly consequence. It'll have you robbing God of what belongs to him. Blinded. He saw. But really what was happening in his heart, he didn't just see, he was weighing. The scales were out. And all of the goods carried much more weight in his heart, carried much more glory than the glory of the Lord. I mean, think about it. Okay. Yeah, silver bars of gold weighing 50 shekels. Oh, it's good stuff. Okay, the robe, I get it. 200 shekels? How do you know there was 200 shekels? Like if you're looking on the ground, you'd be like, there's 3 shekels. 3, I get that. Maybe 5, maybe 10. How do you know there's 200? Because he wasn't just seeing, he was beholding. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was gazing. He was giving them glory. A weight in his life that only God was supposed to carry. Can I just tell you, sin will give you an inflammation of your imagination. It will inflame, and not in a good way. If you know anything about inflammation, it is not good. It's where disease lies. And sin will inflame your imagination to places that you were never meant to go. Never meant to go. And he hid it under the ground. So he knew about the glory of God. Listen to this. People even died. And they died when they built a calf. You know what the consequence was? People died. Gluttony just does not affect you. There's a train wreck behind you. When we are giving into gluttonous ways, it just doesn't hurt us, it hurts other people. So he knew. He knew about the glory of God. He knew people had died, but he set his imagination on these things. And it gave him the appetite. His mind was set, and the appetite was created. All of his senses captivated. So what are you saying, Pastor Matt? I'm saying he saw, he coveted, and he hid. And I think that is a beautiful pattern of when gluttony gets a hold of us. I see, I covet, and then I hide because I don't want anybody to know. Can I just ask you a question today? Where has your imagination been captured now by what you see, that it has blinded you to everything else? Let me say that one more time. Where has your imagination been captured now because of what you see, but has really made you blind? You want to lean into that place. And if you don't know, you should get somebody around and say, hey, do you see any blind spots? Or I see, but I'm really blind. Third mindset I want to look at of gluttony is I need it perfect. This one will say, God isn't enough, I need it my way. Oh, is that an all play for us? Do we all have struggle with that once in a while? Wow. Okay. I'm hoping that you're digesting it and it's just so deep and rich, you're just chewing on it. Okay, I'm taking that one. Mark chapter 8, verse 31 and 33 says, Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. Basically, Jesus was telling Peter, I'm going to the cross. He's telling this to his disciples. And Peter rebukes him and says, no, you're not. And then Jesus rebukes him and says, yes, I am. Get behind me, Satan, etc. We see this pattern in Peter that I never saw before. So Peter is saying, no, I know what you're saying, but you don't have to go to the cross. No way. And then look at this verse, Matthew 26. Peter replied, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. Truly, truly, Jesus answered, this very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And Peter tries so hard to live up to this, he cuts off a dude's ear that takes Jesus captive. And Jesus has to heal him. What's going on with Peter? Well, then we see a little bit later in verse 73 of Matthew 26, after a little while, those standing around went up to Peter. Jesus has now been taken captured. Peter's in the courtyard where Jesus is, and he's trying to figure out what is happening. And they said, surely you're one of them. You're a Galilean. Your accent gives you away. Then he began to call down curses, Peter did, and swore to them, I don't even know the man. Immediately the rooster crows. Then Peter remembered. Gluttony will cause you to forget. You're calling Peter a glutton? Just bear with me. Then Peter remembered the words that Jesus had spoken, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he went and he wept bitterly. I would argue that Peter had a gluttony for security. And this is how it gets so hidden. It's hard to see because it sounds good. But all this time, the Lord is telling him, and Peter's saying no. God is saying, this is what we're doing. He's saying, no, we're not. This is what's going to happen. No, it's not. Why? Because anything that would threaten what he really desires, life secure. I think about this. This is why Peter had such a hard time with suffering, because he longed for security. That's why Jesus said, I got to go to the cross. And Peter's like, no, you don't. You're going to mess up our whole thing. And then he said, Peter, you're going to disown me. And Peter's like, no, I'm not. That's going to mess up my position. And then the little girl and the people approached Peter, said, oh, you're one of them. He said, no, I'm not. You might take my life. Security. Wow. And by the grace of God, we see Peter make a huge turn. But do you see how gluttony can creep in And even though God speaks, we say, no, you're not enough. I need it right. I need it perfect. I need it my way if we're going to move forward. And so you just think about it. Sin will have you desiring something so bad, you want it so bad that it's beyond what's even good for you. And then you're so afraid of losing it, you lose it. Job said, the thing that I fear comes upon me. A hypochondriac is so worried about losing their health, they give way to unhealthy lifestyles and in turn get sick. You have relationships, people that are longing so badly to be in a relationship, they get into a relationship, but they want it so bad they push people away. And it's like the very thing that I don't want, I don't want to happen happens because I'm consumed. I desire to a point of over-desire where God is no longer enough. I need it to work this way.
So good.
You see, gluttony is a rolling stone. It's a trickle effect. You remember Hophni and Peninnah, the sons of Eli the priest? It says, although they ministered in the house of the Lord at Shiloh, these guys were unbelievers. They had no regard for the Lord. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12. And it says that whenever people would bring a sacrifice to the Lord, they would take a big portion of the meat for themselves. It belonged to God. And when people would call them on it, they would threaten their life, affecting people. And then a few verses down, it said they started to have sex with women that were coming to the tent of meeting. The place where they're supposed to be communion with God, they are now using for their brothel.
Wow.
And so how in the world do you go from overeating to sexual perversion? Marshall Siegel says it this way: gluttony is never content to settle down with our sweet tooth and maybe have a couple of kids. It's always itching to travel, to meet foreign vices in lands beyond the sea. If we abandon ourselves to whatever our stomachs crave, we shouldn't be surprised to find other sinful indulgences in our lives as well. Wow. And so we go from food to sexual perversion. Why? Because at the root of it is self-indulgence. God, you are not enough. And gluttony becomes a chameleon. You put it near food, it shades itself as a glutton. You put it near a pretty woman or a smooth-talking man, it takes on the form of lust.
Wow.
And so how do we make room for more? You say, well, what do you mean make room for more? I thought we were supposed to make room for less. Yes, but there's one more that puts everything in perspective. We got to create room to glut ourselves on Jesus. This is the only place where the Lord gives no parameters. Like you can fully feast on him. And all it does is put everything else in its proper place. It's like the feast of all feasts. Jesus said it even like this. He says, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Jesus, when facing temptation with the enemy, he quotes, and man shall not live on bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. That we have to begin to feast on that which is healthy. We have to create room for more, so that in our attempts to get more, it's really more and not less. And we start to build something that God has called us to build with him, where he gets glory, not something we have built, where it gets glory, and it's to our demise. Paul the Apostle, he says it this way. He says, and now compelled by the Spirit, I'm going to Jerusalem, not knowing what will happen to me there. Not knowing what will happen to me there, I only know that in every city the Holy Spirit warns me that prison and hardships are facing me. But I do not consider my life as something of value or dear to me. Worship team, you guys can come up. So that I may with joy. Now hold on. You got prison and hardships facing you. You don't value your life, but you got great joy. With joy, finish my course in the ministry which I received from the Lord to testify faithfully of the good news. What Paul learned is the more that you do as you please, the less pleased you are with what you do. But the more you do as he pleases, the more you are pleased with what you do.
So good.
Sit on that for a minute.
So good.
What Paul is saying, it is no longer I that live, but Christ that lives within me. My life has been emptied. I've created space for the ultimate more. I've gluttoned myself on him. See, there's a couple things that Paul did that I want to leave with us today. I want to leave you with this today. Number one is he believed that Christ alone is satisfying enough. Do you believe that today, that Christ alone will satisfy your heart? Like, do you really believe that? Because if you believe that and you know that to be true, but you're not experiencing that in your life, but at least you have that anchor to say, no, I know that he alone should be satisfying to me. But if we're honest, some of us may say, but I know that, but I really don't believe that. I know he should be enough, but he's not enough. Good. And Paul said, no, he is enough. And so what did Paul do? Was it just easy for Paul? I just emptied myself. Just that Christ would rule and reign. Got his cape blowing in the wind. For me to live as Christ and to die as gain. Just love that prison and hardships are facing me. I don't even value my life, but I just have this joy. No, Paul was in a fight just like you and I. In fact, look what it says. It says, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Pause. Why in Christendom, when we're struggling with sin, do we always try to train our body to do what it shouldn't? Stop doing that. Don't do that. Stop thinking like that. What Paul is saying is, I'm not giving way to sin. I've repented. I'm no longer a slave there. But I'm still in a fight. And he says, so I discipline my body to not stay away from what it shouldn't do, but I discipline my body towards what it should do. The secret to avoiding sin is not trying to avoid sin. The secret from avoiding sin is to repent, making a full turn, and pursuing Christ. That is where you find victory. So many of us, we just sit there, we're just like, man, I'm trying hard not to do this. I'm trying hard not to fall into that. And the whole time you're meditating on it, and it has your imagination captive. Paul was like, no, I'm going to train my body what not to do. I already know that. I'm disciplining my body in what it should do. I'm disciplined to show up to prayer. I'm showing up to the word. I'm showing up to worship. I'm showing up to these things that I know I love. I'm making room for him. Because Paul knew that as I did this discipline turns into desire because I see the fruit of it. I'm telling you guys know, I lost 40 pounds over the last several months. And the goal wasn't to stay at the bottom, but to put on muscle as I come back. And can I just tell you, if I'm getting into a place of unhealth now, I just feel it. My body, I just said, Jack, like, yeah, so it's my diet, something's off. Like, I just feel it. Why? Because I trained my body what it should do, and I love it. But it was a discipline that turned into a desire because of the fruit, that turned into a delight. And now there's a fullness. Even though I have less, I have more. And this was the whole secret of the kingdom. Paul's like, my mind is set, but not on earthly things, on heavenly things. And it's so full. And all this discipline did was not suppress his desire. But as he showed up in prayer, as he showed up in the word, as he showed up in worship, how he was faithfully engaged with God. I'm just using those as an example. Fasting. You want to know how gluttonous you are? Try fasting. You will know really, really quick you're not as good as you think. And so what Paul was saying this, I'm not suppressing my desire for more. No, I just discipline my body, and through that discipline, prayer and worship and the word, I have found a greater desire that overrides my desire for all these peripheral things that have been trying to destroy my life. So it's not about suppressing and, just got to try really hard not to be a glutton. Paul's like, no, I'm pursuing Christ. I'm disciplining my body in the things that I know it should do. And as I'm doing that, oh my goodness, the beauty and the majesty and the goodness and the gratefulness that I am toward God for all that he's given me and all that he's given us to enjoy, that even prison, even chains feel like joy to me. I'm empty, but I'm so full, I've created room for more. And so I want to encourage you today. What are the areas of discipline I know we hate that word in church. Oh, that's so legalistic. No, it's not. It's the Bible. This is for your joy. This is not for your harm. This is not for your exhaustion. This is to escape what promises fullness and leads to emptiness. This is how we create room for more, not by suppressing our desire for fullness, but by getting our hearts on the one who can only really satisfy, the bread of life. Those who feast on him will never thirst or go hungry again. So I'm just going to do this last part. Can I give you one more thing? Yes. I think, can somebody toss me a communion? What's up, Auntie Mata? Can you guys toss me a, yeah, thank you so much, Kim. I feel like this is a discipline, communion, that is just lost in the church today. We wait for once a month. We all do it together. Awesome. But Jesus said, as often as you do this, I would encourage you. I'm encouraging myself. Take communion often, because it is a very small piece of bread and a small little juice that packs a big punch. It's small, but it points to fullness. It's a little bit, but it points to more. It's a small thing that makes room for more. There you go. I was trying to figure it out. I'm a verbal processor. You can tell. I'm like, yeah, it's not hitting. What is that? Oh, that's it. But this is what communion does. This is what the Lord's table. It's not our table anymore, full of food and feast. No, it's his table. And everything he's given us is for our joy, but for his glory, to point us back to him. Not to become God, but to be enjoyed for what it was created to do. So the Lord's table really quickly reminds us that food is created good. There's a lot of things, food that God has given us. There's a lot of other things that in moderation, it's good. It's for our joy. Food is nothing's wrong with food. It's about the heart and the over-desire that gluttony resides. It's not about eating a good meal. Don't go home like, this good meal, so good, I'm a glutton. No, just let that goodness point you to his faithfulness and provision. It reminds us, the Lord's table reminds us, communion reminds us, that food is not an end of itself, but it's meant to teach our soul about our need for Christ. Like I just said, it reminds us that sin is serious. So if you've been struggling with gluttony, fair game. But the atonement is just as real. His blood that was shed for your forgiveness and for mine, it's available today. It's not a long turn. It's a repent. It's a one turn. Lord, I'm turning from this and I'm turning to you. I don't want to live like this anymore. It gives us the freedom and reminds us that we are no longer slaves to sin, but alive in Christ. It reminds us that Jesus is the Lord of the table, which the table is no longer Lord. Whatever your table of choice is, that's ruling your life, it does not have to be. Positionally, it's already been defeated on the cross. But like Paul, you may have to discipline your body to catch up with your soul. Are you with me? The table is not Lord, he is Lord. And it reminds us that. It reminds us to affirm our love for fellow believers. But guess what? It's not just about our consumption, it's about one another. It's not just about our table. And what God has given us, it's, Lord, how can we share? How can I create capacity and margin for generosity, for service? How can I use my resources to create a table where God can be glorified and other people can come to know him, where he can dwell? Are you with me? It reminds us of the beauty of self-control, which is a fruit of the Spirit. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit of God in our life. And it reminds us that the real feast is yet to come. Jesus says on that day, you and I are going to feast with him. We're going to sit and we're going to eat, and it's going to be fire and it's going to be good. You got to save room for more. This is not the end, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get your mindset on earthly things, but on heavenly things. And I promise you it'll change your appetite. Will you stand to your feet?